to talk a little about Buddhist ethics. Huh? Now, generally, the Buddha taught us certain ethics or Buddhist behavior, which every Buddhist should try to behave. Now, the Buddhist ethics are different from, say, ethics in our daily life. Okay? Because ethics in daily life are dependent on man-made sort of rules, man-made suggestions. So these are different. The Buddhist ethics are such that if we Buddhists practice these ethics, people will benefit from it. People will respect us, will say, oh, this person is very ethical, very, very respectable, huh? And they will like you as a result of practicing the ethics recommended by the Buddha. So it is very useful to know that. And it is also very useful to realize that these ethics apply everywhere. That is, it applies when you are here, when you are in Singapore, when you are in China, when you are in Japan, or in Europe. It is the ethics for human behavior, more or less. Every human being should know how to behave. This is the Buddhist ethics. And it should not change with time. You should not say, oh, this ethic was 2,500 years ago, introduced by the Buddha. Now it's modern, 2,500 years later, so we should not accept those ethics. It doesn't work that way. These ethics still apply because it is actually humanistic ethics. All human beings should behave in that manner. This is the ethic we are talking about. See? And the other important thing about ethics, Buddhist ethics, is this, that these ethics, we should try to understand why the Buddha has suggested these ethics. You see, the reasoning behind it. You see, there are certain people who become followers of certain religions, and who just accept whatever that religion teaches without questioning. Now, Buddhism is entirely different. Now, if you want to be a Buddhist, please underline this one. Ask and inquire and make investigations. Don't just accept anything. Buddhism is like that. So if you want to be a true Buddhist and you don't ask questions, you are not a Buddhist at all. You are out, far out, way out, and not anywhere near a Buddhist. Because a Buddhist must really investigate and ask, investigate. In fact, Buddhism and science are very similar because, like science, you investigate. Say, I say this is oxygen, a jar, and then you have to test it and prove it is oxygen. You don't simply say, I say it's oxygen, you accept it's oxygen. Never do that. See? So therefore, so with Buddhism, when the Buddha says these ethics are good for you, you must follow them, you should ask why. Why? Why should it be so? I don't agree. That is the type of attitude you should have. And that's the only way you can really learn Buddhism correctly and with deep understanding. Because if you don't ask, just accept it. What you have done is you have accepted some people's opinion and you have never questioned. And if somebody asks you why you do it, you just scratch your head, don't know, and then somebody tell you that's wrong, and you think hey, maybe it's wrong, you see. Now look, you have not really understood Buddhism. See? Therefore, that is not the approach. So if you don't ask questions, you are not a true Buddhist, you are not really learning the Buddha's teachings, and you will never really understand it thoroughly. And you will never also apply it. If you say, well, it's just somebody told me, I don't know how to apply it, I don't care. Just accept it. That is no use. You see, when you investigate and you ask questions, left, right, and center, and in the end you say, now I am convinced this is correct, I accept it fully, then you will automatically apply it. Okay? Otherwise, you will never apply it. You will take it like, just reading newspapers and news. You say, hey, okay I read the news, today's news. So many fellows got killed and so on and so forth. You just accept that. It doesn't do you any bit of good. So Buddhism, please practice this style. Investigate. The Buddha says, never accept anything without thorough investigation, questioning, investigating. And you'll find that the Buddha's teachings is particularly necessary for you to investigate, because what he teaches are actually something which we are not normally behaving, not normally meeting with in our daily life. It's something exceptional. It's something very different. See? So therefore, don't simply accept. And don't simply sit down and listen, go back, take notes, and then cut the notes one side and think you have known it. In fact, I have read a few books, and one of the books, the author says, most of the people who listen to Dhamma, they go home, they say, hey, very simple, I have understood. What is so difficult? But really, you have not understood. For instance, the Four Noble Truths. The first Noble Truth says, the Buddha taught us, life is suffering. Now all of us accept, I have suffering, I have suffered, I get sick, trouble everywhere. But when I question you, you will say, I agree, I also got some happiness inside, Not all suffering, not 100%, I get about 80% suffering, 20% happiness, or the other way around. So therefore, you haven't understood this teaching. Because you say you've got reservations. You say, I don't think it's only suffering. There is some happiness. That is where you haven't understood. The Buddha says life is suffering. Everything is suffering. You haven't understood. You see the point. Because you never bothered to question. You simply think, yes, I get sick. Naturally, pain, suffering, isn't it? But when I'm not sick, when I'm well, I enjoy dancing. Where was suffering? You never asked that. How do you know that suffering? Why? Why does Buddha say it's suffering? You see, nobody has a question. And therefore you haven't understood the Buddha's teaching. Very simple. Therefore, all of us, even I, have not fully understood it. It is so deep. And it's only when you question, when you get down to investigating in great depth and detail, and seeing things, and practicing it, then you see, now I begin to see. Now I begin to realize. I begin to go deeper into it. It is just like an ocean. Okay? What you've done is, you look at the top, you say, there are waves, sometimes it's calm, but you don't know what's at the bottom, right? The bottom is very, very different. There are all sorts of animals, insects, all kinds of things inside. And the sea water is so complicated, it's full of chemicals, and so on and so forth. We don't realize it. We just look at the sea and say, I know what the sea is. But in reality, you do not know anything about the sea, because there's so much to learn. Just like that, when the Buddha teaches you something, please ask yourself. Don't just accept. If you just accept and go back, you are not a true Buddhist. And you will never go deep into it. You will never gain enlightenment, because you haven't understood this teaching. Simple as that. So therefore, I wish to encourage every one of you, when there is this sort of a session, to ask from A to Z. As I said, if you ask anything and somebody laughs at you, that person who is laughing is a stupid fellow. We are all stupid, but that person who laughs is more stupid than you are. Because at least you have asked, tried to find out what you don't know. He might not know a lot of things, which he doesn't realize. He doesn't even know. He doesn't know. You see, this is the point about Buddhism. A lot of us think we know. but actually we don't know. And the fact you don't know that you don't know is the most difficult part of the thing. You think you know, but you haven't understood. And that is the most critical, most difficult part to overcome. Okay? So, under ethics, as I said, these Buddhist ethics, the Buddha has taught us. And the objective in teaching these ethics are to tell us that we all human beings and all living beings, not only humans, every living being likes to live a happy life, right? Now how can we assure ourselves that all of us can have a reasonably happy life? Huh? And this is the reason why the Buddha says you should behave in this manner. This is the ethics which I am recommending to you, which I am suggesting to you. Try to follow these ethics. And if you do so, everybody has a chance to be happy. And this is the background of Buddhist ethics. See? And not only that, these ethics are not a rule made by God or all-powerful being. No such thing. It is a very reasonable and very, very useful code for us to follow. And if we follow this code, we follow it because we can understand we are human beings. We reason out and say, these are good for everyone. So that is why we want to practice them. See? Not because we are forced to do so. Not because if we don't do so, we will suffer. That is a secondary aspect. It does happen that way. See? That is secondary. But the main thing is with understanding and willingness on our part. Understanding what the Buddha has explained. We say, it is good, so therefore I am willing to accept. Nobody forces me to accept, understand? I am not forcing any one of you to accept. And here again, the Buddha's teaching is very, very straightforward. He says, I am teaching you these teachings. I never say you must do anything. The Buddha has never mentioned in any of his teachings throughout his 45 years of life, he has never said, you must not do this, you must do that. Never. If you can show me that, then I will accept. Otherwise, I have seen so many books, he has never said, don't do this, you must do that. Nothing like that. And why? Because the Buddha understands. His teachings are very, very reasonable. You try to follow them. And it is not easy to follow. That is why the Buddha never says, you must do this, you must do that. No. You might be able to do it. You might not be able to do it. The reason is your understanding may not be sufficient for you to understand thoroughly, accept, and do it. You might have a lot of other problems. You cannot understand, so you will never follow it. So it's very difficult. It's not easy at all. So the teachings are like that. Even the precepts which he says, avoid killing. He never says, you must not kill. Remember that? He says, avoid killing. See how beautiful. And that is the beauty of Buddhism. And that is the sort of thing you must always remember. And that is why when we learn Buddhism, we must learn with intelligence, with an open mind. We must go and investigate, find out. Now, going back to this ethics, I don't want to describe what they are, and I think most of you have read. This is what I want to say, the introduction about ethics. So now I think I will leave it open to you to ask questions. If you have any particular paragraph, particular area you're not clear, you can always bring it up. I think we'll discuss one at a time. We'll deal with Buddhist ethics, and when we finish that, we will come to the second topic, 10 territories, and 10 demeritorious deeds, and finally we'll talk about the precepts, okay? So I don't want to take too much of your time, but as I said, I want each of you at least to ask one question on this ethics. I mean, if you don't ask, as I said, that means you have not understood anything about Buddhism. That means you haven't even read it if you cannot ask a question. Because it's such a wide subject, so many pages. And I'm sure that if you really want to be good Buddhists, want to learn something, please ask. Huh? Anything you ask is useful. And nothing not valuable at all. Any question. So let's start from here. First question from you. Any question? You didn't read to him. Next, any questions, please? Quick, huh? I'm not going to beg you to ask questions. I give you the opportunity, but you're going to ask, I'm not going to force you. Yes? One of the things that I think we should not spend too much of time on is the difference between one sect and another sect. There are differences. Now we should not highlight the differences, because you find that the Vinaya rules sometimes, as I said, have been misinterpreted by different sects of people, and they have even modified them. So therefore, it is something that inevitably happens. And in fact, even the Buddha's teaching, not even the Vinaya rules, even the Buddha's teachings in itself, there are different interpretations and different sects. There are so many types. They have had differences of opinion, and they say this says that, some people say this doesn't say that. So that sort of thing is a matter of interpretation, and it's also a matter of translation, and from which source, and so on and so forth. There's so much to talk about. That's a very wide subject, really. Why, for instance, one sect says this, the other sect disagree. So that is very deep, and that is going to be study of various types of Buddhism. So now let's concentrate more on one type, on Theravada type, and then later on, when we improve ourselves and we know more, we will expand and go further and study the other sects. So I don't think we should spend too much of time on it. There are differences. For instance, the Mahayana say we should be vegetarian. Theravada says no need. I mean, these are very simple, Obviously, you have this sort of differences. In fact, this is exactly what I want to point out. You have mentioned, now, whatever belief you belong to, whatever sect you belong to, never condemn the other one. Never say you're wrong. Never say the other party is incorrect. He has misinterpreted or he's wrong. Never do that. Even another religion. A Buddhist should never say, Christians are wrong. They believe in all-powerful God. The Buddha says there's no such person, no such being. So don't say that. It's wrong to say that. The Buddha emphatically said not to criticize or condemn another religion or another belief. Let them carry on their belief. If they want to know about Buddhism, we will explain to them. But we should not go and tell them, you are following the wrong belief. You are not following the right thing. Never do that. And as you said, don't try to say, this person is wrong, that person is wrong, or belittle each other. Especially among the Buddhist sects. Never do that. That's why I hear a lot of Mahayanas, they say, Theravadas are not true Buddhists, they eat meat, they do this, which is wrong, you see. They have no business to say that, first thing. Okay? Second thing, if you say like that, that means you assume that you are the right person. You are right, others are wrong. Now, how can it be so? Cannot be that simple. In fact, in this whole world, the Buddha says, whatever we do can be wrong. This is the Buddha's teaching. First fundamental teaching. So nobody should say, you are wrong, I am wrong. There's no such thing. And this is a very fundamental teaching of the Buddha. Never condemn any other person. Among friends also, don't condemn others. Because it's not First thing is ethically wrong. Second thing, you are by no means certain you are right. See? So don't do that. It's not right to say that. Never condemn each other. Never criticize another religion. If they want to believe like that, let them carry on. We should not interfere, and we should not belittle another religion. So let that be a good advice, because if you do that, you're going to be involved in a lot of arguing, and there will be no end to that argument. Because you will say one thing, you will say another, both will never give up, and in the end you start fighting, hurting each other, killing each other too. So don't do that. This is the Buddha's teaching. I hope that satisfies you, because as I said, we do not wish to go into these differences in different sects. If we do that, that topic becomes too complicated. There will be too many arguments, and I'm not an expert in all the different sects of Buddhism, so I must admit that too. So if you say Mahayana, I don't know what really Mahayana teaches, and what Theravada I know a little, so I can talk about Theravada. So not too much about Mahayana. So you excuse me for that. No? Now let's relate to ethics more. Come back to the subject of ethics. You've got your pages here. I'm sure you would have found something here which you may not understand, or you may not even agree to these, what is given here. Yes, any other body want to ask questions? Yes, please. He says, breaking of moral codes pertaining to loka vidya create bad reputation as well as bad karma, whereas violation of disciplinary codes based on social conditions do not necessarily create bad karma. That's the paragraph you're talking about, yeah? Yeah. You see, when you break the what you call the moral code, loka vajja, it means you are killing or, doing something which is very serious. That kind of thing. That is going to be very, very harmful, because it will create bad karma. You see, you harm people. Or you steal things from people. These are very important moral codes. They are actually karmic actions, and you will get karmic results. For instance, say for no reason you scold a person wrongly. It is by speech. That means you have spoken evil or harsh speech. It is actually a karmic action. It is a moral code. And if you do that, it is karmic action. You are harming people. You are making people unhappy. So that is this moral code. Okay? Now the other one is disciplinary codes. Now disciplinary codes are slightly different. They are just for discipline, meaning like this. For instance now, among the monks, you have got certain order. Say you are senior, you are next, you are third. Now if you say, you should respect him, but if you just unintentionally or intentionally, you might just not pay him that respect that is due. That is also breaking a disciplinary code. But that is not so heavy. That's not so serious. You know what I mean? You are just lacking the respect. That's all. So it's not that serious. It is a disciplinary code. For instance, I say you're going to get up 8 o'clock every morning and you get at 8:15. I mean, you've broken the code. But it's not very serious, isn't it? I mean, it hasn't done any harm, isn't it? Or I say you must eat, say, before 12, and you eat at exactly 12. I mean, you have broken, it's a disciplinary code. But that's not serious, isn't it? I mean, have you harmed anybody by eating at 12 o'clock? I don't think so, isn't it? So just like that, it is just one of those disciplines that has been introduced, but if you break it, you're not very serious. For instance, among the Vinaya rules, there are 227. So you can see, some of them are very minor rules. There are disciplinary rules. For instance, when you eat, and it's very good curry, you eat, you know what you do? You go, you lick your finger. Very nice. Like you eat Kentucky chicken with your finger licking taste. Now, according to monks, if you do that, it's breaking one of the rules, But that's harmless, isn't it? I mean, you can do it. I'm not going to say you hurt me or so in doing that, you see. But these are the ones, where it is not a karmic effect at all. It is no karmic effect. These are called disciplinary rules. And these are the ones that if you break, it creates no karma. Not very serious. You follow that now? So there are many types, as I said. Important ones are the moral codes, which you shouldn't break, because it hurts a lot of people. The other disciplinary codes are rather minor codes. And that one, as I said, if you break them, among the monks, they will have a meeting, If you break even a small code, they can sort of bring you up and say, this monk didn't pay me the due respect the other day, you see. And you can say, well, I'm sorry, I didn't really see you. You were standing in the doorway and I walked in. How do I know you were there? You see? So you get an excuse, you see. And it's only just one of those very minor rules, okay? Yeah, any other questions, please? Very good question. Now, the question is that you might be following the code, and somebody doesn't, and try to harm your family members or try to do something which is not in accordance with the Buddhist code of practice or whatever it is. Now, what are you going to do about it? It cause some harm to your family members. What should we do about it? Now, that's a very good question. Anybody like to try answering that? Well, to cut an argument short, because if you reason like this, there will be no end to this argument. Okay? There are many ways of doing things. Now, the Buddha has advised the way that our friend here has answered. He says, you practice patience and tolerance. It's cold, talk over nonsense, you keep quiet. And if you do that sufficiently, he will get fed up and say, scold also no answer, he will walk out. He will say, yeah, this fellow also mad fellow, what to scold, even no use. See? And he will keep quiet. It will happen that way. But you must have faith in the Buddha's teaching. And you get angry, you scold him back. What will happen is, he will scold back, you scold back, and there will be a fight. And somebody will get very serious hurt. This is what has happened. The Buddha says, hate is never overcome by hate, but by loving kindness alone. That is his answer. That's why we learn Buddhism. So you must try and practice it. So you see, you disagree, that is, you're not following the Buddha's teaching. Now the point is, you are perfectly justified in doing so, if you want to do it. This is the point. And if you do that, anything happens, you must take the responsibility or the results yourself. If you hit back or you fight him, chase him out, next time he comes with a gang and you are hurt, sent to hospital, you die. You are suffering the result of your drastic action. Because you quarrel with him, you fight with him, you hit him, and then he comes back and takes you back. So one of you will have to suffer. So do you want that or not? It's up to you. See? That is what I say. The Buddha never says you must do this. The Buddha says, avoid doing that. Try to be like that. Try to practice patience, tolerance, and understanding, or loving kindness. And that is the only answer to overcome all these wars. In fact, the world today, there are wars. Why? Because nobody will give in. Okay? You bully me, I must sit back. You have got atomic warheads, I also must do atomic. And this is going to end up in war. The Buddha says, this is the wrong way. Hatred, you use hatred. Never solution. There's no solution there. It will end up very unhappily for both. The victor, if you win the war, you won't be happy. Because people who suffer will hate you, right? They will never like you. The one who lost, they will suffer. They are suffering. They lost you. So therefore, both suffer if you fight. So therefore, if you understand the Buddha's teaching, It is very, very difficult to practice. That's what I'm telling you. The Buddha's teachings are not easy to practice. See? This is where the difficulty lies. That's why I want you to investigate, find out why. See? And now you are bringing out a question which, if you analyze, you find you can do so many things. Nothing is stopping you from doing them. But you must know the consequences. You quarrel, you fight back, somebody hit you, and then you come with broken arms, then it is your own fault. Don't say the Buddha can bully me, You cannot say that. Because you didn't follow the Buddha's teaching. Okay? You want to fight back. You think you are just as strong. Okay? It's not a strength. Strength is when you give in. Actually. If you can tolerate, you are the stronger person. This is the thing which people don't understand. This is the thing which people don't understand. Okay? And this is what we got to learn about Buddhism. So I think that's enough. So anybody else? Yes? His question is, in daily life, we've got so much of work, so much of responsibility. We quite often are not strong in our sort of Buddhist ethics or Buddhist precepts and all, and we are liable to sort of, either make a mistake or do something which, if we think carefully or if we have the time to think slowly, carefully, we may not do. How to build up a strong foundation on morality. In other words, this is what you're asking, isn't it? Well, the thing is to practice it by doing the precepts as best as you can and being aware that, and when you know your mistake, what you've done wrong, you should then tell yourself, what should I have done? You should investigate. Ask yourself, I should have been quiet, I should have listened to him, and then tell him I'm busy, don't disturb me now, let me come after work or something like that. That's what you should. Next time you meet such an occasion, you will be able to practice. It is by investigation, by thinking, running through, and finding out your faults. That is the only way you can practice. Because very often people do a lot of mistakes without realizing they are making mistakes. And this is what you've got to find out. For instance, a lot of people in the office, they tend to be hot-tempered. They scold people. And when you tell them, you're very hot-tempered, they try to come with you, no, I never get angry. He will say like that. He doesn't admit he gets angry. And this is the difficult part. So you must see yourself, must understand yourself. And if you cannot, you should have a close friend. Ask a friend. I say, come on, you're a good friend. Tell me honestly, did I lose my temper? Am I always liable to get angry? Do I always scold people? He will then tell you honestly. And when he says that, accept it and analyze and check and find out where you have gone wrong. And this is the only way to learn. It takes time. Now you must remember this. The Buddha, in order to attain enlightenment, he didn't do it in 6 years in the jungle only, Remember this. Through so many lifetimes, he has been developing, gradually improving and developing his 10 perfections. Took him hundreds of lifetimes. It is not something you can do it immediately, here and now. So if we think I can improve myself, cure myself within 1 month, 1 year, or 10 years, you are aiming too ambitiously, over-ambitious. It has to be done gradually, systematically, and slowly. And you find that in finding out your defects and all these defilements which you have, one of the good things of doing, good ways of doing it, is to practice the 10 meritorious actions. I found it out myself. You'll be surprised. You find all your evil, if you can do good, help people, do good, and, teach people and do that sort of thing, automatically all the evil which you had, greed, hatred, will tend to go slowly, you find they disappear. And you see yourself in a better light. So these are very interesting aspects of Buddhism. It's only by practice you can see it coming about. So don't think, I should have practiced the 10 meritorious deeds. I don't merit. Maybe so. But practicing the 10 meritorious deeds, which I'll come to later, has many, many advantages. not only getting married, that's, in my opinion, not that critical. It is useful, but that's not the main object. Okay? Because if you give generously, help people, you find that you get the joy of giving. And you will never be selfish. You see? And then you do one, you find people don't have, you give some more. And this encourages you to go more and more into generosity. And you remove all the greed, craving, and all those desires tend to be gradually going off automatically without you having to practice all this. You know? So this is the wonderful thing. So that's what we'll come to that in a moment. Huh? So your question is good. It is very, very difficult for us to know how to do it. We have to do it in stages, little by little. And I would suggest the first thing we practice, if we want to get rid of all these cravings and greed, hatred, delusion, you must try to be generous. Help people. That's the first thing. Help means give money, give things, and give your service. People want to learn something, take the trouble to teach, and so on. And you find by doing it, automatically other things click in and help you. And you will find that you can improve a lot that way. Practice it, try and see. This is one of the usual ways of doing it. Of course, there are other methods also, meditation and so on and so forth. Huh? You can do meditation. If you do meditation, you also train the mind. Huh? Well, that's a practice which can come later. Yes, any other questions, please? At the back. You see, this is where Buddhism also, don't use Buddhism sort of as an excuse or try to avoid practicing the Buddha's teachings and give all sorts of excuses. That is not what the Buddha taught. That is why the Buddha says, he didn't say you must not do that. That's why he didn't. Because if you say that, then you give all sorts of excuses, You say, oh, I want to earn money, I don't know money, how to believe, so I must tell a lie. So you are trying to cheat yourself. See? Buddha doesn't want that. Buddha never said you cannot tell a lie, okay? So now you know you're telling a lie. You know according to Buddhism is wrong. If you think there's no other way of earning a livelihood, you have to tell lies to earn a livelihood, go ahead. But you must suffer the consequences one day. And you tell lies. Next life, you're born, you say honest, I swear I didn't take this. People say you took it, I saw you doing it, and people blame you. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Because you've been telling lies, you see. It's as obvious as that. People never trust you. People got money, they say, hey, go and give him that. Give that check, you keep the money for me. They won't trust you. Finish. I don't know him at all, but I won't trust him. You see the point? This is how, when you do a thing, you reap the damage, the consequences. So if you think you cannot earn your livelihood without telling lies, by all means tell lies. I mean, I'm not going to worry about it. It's your own life. So you think carefully. If you want to do that, you go ahead. And if you do that long enough, and you suffer enough, you begin to see one day, sit down, you get a bit old, you say, I earn my livelihood, see how much of lie I've been telling. See, now people don't trust me, my children also don't trust me, And you begin to see, I say, is this life kind of life worthwhile living? I have been working so hard to earn my livelihood, see, my children also don't trust me, They don't give me money also, So what is this? So you might begin to think, hey, this is the Buddha's teaching. This is what suffering is all about. So life is suffering because you have to tell a lie to earn your livelihood, according to you see. So isn't life suffering? The whole time is suffering. See? So therefore, you better go and think carefully, and if your responsibilities are over, children over, you go and shave the head, put on your yellow robe. You don't have to tell lies. You're a manga. You don't have to earn livelihood. People donate to you. People give you dana. See? So no problem. So this is the way to solve. Gradually come to see the truth. You can lie, but you lie enough, you will know, this is not the way to do things. You will realize it yourself. And then you say, hey, I better stop all this nonsense now. I better do honest work. If I can't earn a livelihood, okay, I become a monk, finish. And there you are. See, so there is a way. So the Buddha never said you can't do it, Remember this, So this is what I want to emphasize. You can do whatever you want. You can even kill. Go ahead and kill. But you take the consequences. I'm not going to take it for you. The Buddha won't take the consequences for you. You do yourself. So this is the teaching of the Buddha. Okay? Is that satisfactory? Of course, I don't go into the business you're doing. Actually, there are ways to overcome it. There are ways. But I have no time to go individually on each person, so it's difficult. There are ways of doing things. But I'm not saying that the way may be entirely satisfactory or not. You might earn less money. But there are ways of doing things. So you think about it. Yes, any other questions? Yes? There are statesmen who are very honest, straightforward, and they give good business. I know people who are very honest, and they are making good money. Not a lot of money, not very rich, not millionaires, but they live a happy life. You see, let's take another case. I don't know about business. I'm not a businessman. You see, I'm a civil engineer by profession. I was a civil engineer, and as a civil engineer, we are always given opportunities of bribery. You go and supervise construction work, contractor comes along with you, ang pao for you, and so on. Now, I tell you this. If you accept ang pao from any contractor, your career as an engineer is finished. You're no more an engineer. You know that. I'm telling you this. But if you don't accept, you're honest. You say, if your work is good, I will facilitate your progress rate. I won't delay. Don't worry. I don't have to give you money. You do your work properly. You do a good job. I will certify your payment. I won't delay you. Tell him that. You'll be very happy. And once you do one contractor that way, every contractor will know, this man cannot bribe. You don't bribe him. He's a very honest fellow. But you do good work, he will tell you. So you get good quality work. This is true. I'm telling you this. I have experienced it. Because once you accepted something, and you tell the contractor, hey, this work cannot, you will collapse, You say, hey, never mind lah. I say, I give you 1,000, what you want to talk like this? Last month I give you 2,000, and then this and that, you want to talk. Cannot lah, you see. So you have to shut up. And next time the building collapse, you have it. And next time you do another job, the other contractor will say, hey, that contractor told me he can get bribe, you see? So your whole career is finished. Really, I'm telling you. So do you want to be like that, get some money, or you want to do honest work? Which is what you want. You decide. I'm not saying you must think consequently. I'm saying you, as a human being, can think. You think and decide. Yes. I don't know how much time we got. Hey, I've already spent maybe an hour. I think we better rush on. I think we'll come to the next topic, 10 meritorious and 10 evil actions. Now this subject is quite important in the sense that the Buddha has said, he said, don't do evil, right? That's his first teaching. So here we have 10 evil actions which you can do if you want to. Okay? 10 of them. And there are 10 meritorious deeds, good deeds. So there are 2. So therefore, try to remember this. If you want to follow the Buddha's teaching, this is what you should follow now. 10 meritorious actions, try to practice all the time, any time, whenever you have the chance. This is the first thing. And the 10 evil actions, try your best to avoid doing them. Now, what are the 10 meritorious actions? You must have all learned it before in your previous classes. So I will run through it very quickly. I don't go into detail. The first is dana, giving or generosity. That is very good. Please, every one of you practice it in a limited way if you have no money. But don't say, I have no money, how can I do dana? You are talking nonsense. You are really talking nonsense. Because every living being can give dana. You don't earn, I'm still studying, how can I give dana? You can still give dana. How? Alright, you have some Sundays off. Huh? You go to the old folks' home, sweep the floor for them. Wash clothes for the old people. That is dana, giving your time. You got classmates who may be backward in the study. They don't know Bahasa Melayu. You are good. You say, no man, come, I teach you. Sunday, go teach. That is dana. See? So don't say you have no money. Cannot do. So therefore, you can practice it. You can help people. Roadside, you see people drop down there. Okay? Push them up. Send taxi to the hospital. That's all dana, you know. Don't think, oh, I must have money to give. Money is not everything. Money is not the most important thing. Remember that. So therefore, give. Be generous. The Buddha says, we all came into this world naked, nothing, not even a stitch of clothing, not 1 cent in your hand. So what you have now is only temporary. When you die, you can't take a cent with you. You can't take all your beautiful clothes with you. So therefore, don't cling on to these things. What you have is very temporary. So please use it. Get your money from a savings account. Don't save too much. Some is necessary. I mean, I'm not saying you should save. Take some out and give. Every, say, month, go somewhere. Or twice a month, or 1 week once, if you can do it. Do that. Buy some fruits. Say, oh, books from 30 people. Buy 30 oranges. 30 cents an orange. 30, $9. You say $9, bring in an orange, go, I have no money, I give you orange. See how happy they will be. This is giving. Do that. And I want you to practice that. Don't even learn it and say, yeah, and then don't do it. Do it. Do it. Make sure you do it. In fact, I do it. I'm a pensioner. And every twice a year, I give to charitable organizations. I give $100, $200. I give at least $3,000 to $5,000 every year from my pension. So I can afford to do that. Why can't you do it? Please. Because it's by giving that you will receive, that you will benefit, that your greed and craving will be removed by this generosity. I found it very true because I have been practicing generosity and I find now I have no craving for money. See people go for shares, buy TV, 3 shares. I think you are good. I'm not interested. I've got enough money. I give to charity. What the hell I want some more for? Give me more. I don't know what to do with it. Go ahead, you all at last. So you see the point. You must really practice it. The Buddha says, my teachings are for you to practice. You get the result here and now. Don't have to wait until next life. Don't believe people say, next life you'll be rich. That's no use. You will benefit now. Here. You will enjoy happiness, peace, contentment. So please do that. The next one is sila. That is morality. And this means keeping your precepts. We'll come to that last of all. So the third one is bhavana or meditation or mental training, training of the mind. Now this one, I don't know whether you learn very much about it, but if you haven't, then I would suggest you practice slowly by first trying out loving kindness meditation. Practice that. It is very, very good. I have no time to teach you, but you can always read it anywhere. Loving kindness meditation. It is something that should be done. And it will give you a lot of benefits if you do it sincerely and long enough. Then the next one is reverence and respect. This means that we must show reverence and respect to all people who deserve that respect. Not only our father, mother, teacher. Anybody who deserves respect, we must show. Okay? Buddha is very reasonable. He doesn't say only Buddhists or your own family you respect. No. He says every being, if they are good, respect them. Very fair. Okay? Then the next one is service to others. Service to others means helping others. Huh? You are kind, assist people, take a person, he's come back from a long holiday somewhere, his house all dirty, he wants to clean or something, no servant, or you help him. That is service, of people. Be of service to others. Do that. Next one is, number 6, is transference of merit. This means that when you do meritorious deeds, anything, you think and say, may I transfer this merit to my departed relatives. Or these happiness from giving this merit, may Devas share them with me. May I share them with the Devas. Say that. That's all you need to do. Don't go to the temple and pray, say, I've done that merit, I give $100, please let me give to my father. No need. It is your heart. Your mind is very powerful. Okay? By the virtue of the merit I gave in giving dana, $100 to so-and-so, may these go to my departed relatives, and may they benefit and be happy and healthy. Say that. That's all. You have done the transference of merit. Okay? The thing is, if you are, let's say somebody died, and he's born in a very woeful place. Woeful means hungry ghosts, that sort of place. They will be there for a long, long time, not one lifetime. It may be like our lifetime, hundreds of lifetimes, They'll be suffering there. Understand? So therefore, if you transfer, they are suffering. They are the ones who can benefit. Then they don't benefit. They don't benefit. If they are reborn as human beings, they don't benefit either. But never mind, you simply transfer. Because who knows, among your relatives, there may be thousands of them. No, I don't know, my relatives. Even I might go to hell one day, So how do you know? So nobody knows whether you've been there or not. So it's reasonably acceptable that we should transfer merit to our departed relatives. After all, it doesn't cost us anything. So we have sent this merit and share it with them. It's more like sharing. It doesn't matter. It is still a relationship, Yeah, there are so many people who are parents related to us and all that. So we don't know. We can't see. Are there any other questions on this? Now this is a very deep subject, but I don't want to spend too much of time on it, So I thought you already cleared this previously, in the previous courses. Yeah. Then the next one is rejoice in others' good deeds. That means when somebody is very successful or has done some good deeds, done merit, we should not be jealous. We should rejoice. We should be happy for them. Okay? In fact, we practice it even before the Buddha's teachings came about. When people get married, they give you a invitation card, and you go and enjoy, and you drink yamsing with them. You are actually rejoicing in that man's marriage, isn't it? This is what it means. It means he is happy. We also are happy. We enjoy. This is the meaning of that. So we have been practicing it actually. But there are some people who are very jealous. Say, a man, maybe that girl, once loved you, and then you must say, hey, that was my girl, now you're taking away. So jealous. So that means you are not willing to go for the marriage. That's not good. So we should rejoice. We should all go. Don't be jealous, don't be selfish. Rejoice in other good deeds. Then the next one is listening to Dharma talk. We are doing it now. Giving Dhamma thought. I don't know whether you've done it. It's also very good. So if you can teach somebody Dhamma, practice it. You may know little, but you can teach a little also. So don't worry, huh? So that should be good. And finally, the last one is straightening of our views. So the 10 are, now they have split them in a very good way. Now these 10 evil actions are split into thought, speech, and action. These 10, huh? Now under thoughts, you find it, this is given in page 1, this is 5-9, huh? Yeah, 159. You see, the picture first talk about bodily actions. Huh? In bodily actions, you've got killing. Of course, that's under the precepts also, you're supposed to follow. Second is stealing. Third is unlawful sexual intercourse, which you do with your body. So try not to do that. And not only are these sort of evil actions to be avoided, but it will produce the evil karma, which will make you suffer later on. So, as somebody mentioned, if you have to think about evil, that will be, it's very difficult to do or something like that. Huh? So let's take this as something we must try our very best not to do. Because the Buddha has advised against it. And the effects of killing are useful. There it says the brevity of life, short life, ill health, constant grief due to separation from love, and living in constant fear. So these are the sort of evil consequences of killing. So try not to kill. Huh? Then stealing, bad consequences, poverty, misery, disappointment, and dependent livelihood. So don't steal, because if you steal, you are liable to meet these unwholesome and unpleasant consequences. Then the bad consequences of sexual misconduct are having many enemies, always being hatred and union with undesirable wives and husbands. Now you can see, some people with undesirable husbands and wives, you can think and say, don't tell them, you'll say, mind your own business, you mustn't go interfere with people's lives, You see, you say, now I know, why you always quarrel, why the wife is like that, We must have been, rather, not virtuous, going to other people's wives or something like that. That's why today is getting this type of very evil, bad wife, uncontrollable, and, with the other men, and so on and so forth. So you know that, roughly. So the next one is verbal actions. There are 4. One is lying, slander, tale-bearing, harsh speech, and frivolous and meaningless talk. So you find that in the precepts, lying is one of those 4 precepts, but the others are not included. Although, of course, it is indirectly involved. So if you really want to keep the precepts properly or advance of the precepts and go a bit further, you not only don't lie, don't use harsh speech, don't use frivolous talk, and don't slander people also under this lying. So it's up to you. The Buddha didn't say that, so it's up to you. If you really want to go a step better, you can say, instead of only observing not to lie, I shall not use harsh speech, slandering, and frivolous gossip and that sort of stuff. It can be included. Because I have practiced that. I think this is a very good precept to practice. The harsh speech, frivolous talk, and what you call slander and all that, try to avoid. We tend to do that. We tend to do that. Harsh speech, when we're angry, we always scold people. Try not to do it. It's very good. And according to the book here, it says bad consequences of lying are subject to abusive speech and vilification, untrustworthiness, and physical unpleasantness. So quite a lot of unpleasant characteristics you derive. The bad effects of slandering is losing one's friends without any sufficient cause. So you slander people, you find somehow you got good friends. For no reason, that friend will just disappear and don't talk to you or something like that. So this is one of the reasons. So don't try to slander people. Then the next one is harsh speech. And that one, you are being detested by others. Have a harsh voice. The results of frivolous talk are defective bodily organs and speech that no one believes. Now, quite a lot of people will tell me, I tell them things they never follow what I say. You find a lot of people say that. I always advise them, you never listen, Especially children, You find the younger generation, the father will say, I advise them not to preach, you purposely want to do that, I like that, This is something which you can assume that in the previous life he must have been talking a lot of frivolous talk, with the matters of his life, the children are stolen to them, So this is possible, So if you want to have obedient children, don't do too much of frivolous talk. Don't gossip and all that,